Hello, hi, how are you? How are you doing? Um, so, in this episode, I want to talk about two movies I watched um, that are so similar in a tragic way. Now, if you don't know already, I love watching movies. I'm somebody who is a student of literature. Um, I'm also like a beginner in the school of history as well. When I say school of history, I don't mean an official one. I mean like a general one. So anywhere I see history being discussed or history being talked about, I'm there. I'm there to see what is going on. I'm there to listen. I'm there to learn. I'm there to observe. So, yes. I'll be right back. Okay. So I just had to address something that was a little distracting. So, as it were, I watch movies a lot, and I'm even bothered that I might be a little addicted to watching movies. Because I could go days sometimes not doing anything else but just eating, sleeping, maybe doing the basics so my mom does not get on my case. But then I go back to watching, maybe a serial. It happens when it's a serial. When it's a movie, you're done watching a movie and that's it. But when it's a serial, you are like, so what happened next? And so what happened next? Before you know it, which is why I appreciate when, the series is ongoing. So you are able to watch like maybe give or take at most 7 episodes in a week. At most, sometimes is merely 5 episodes in a week. Like on weekends, they don't upload episodes. So, but at the same time, that has its advantages in the sense that because you're watching it in parts, you have to wait. So I think I like that because it helps me practice delayed gratification, right? Not having to swallow everything at the same time. Like when all the series are done with and it's like probably 44 episodes or 50 episodes or even more. If you're watching India, you know that you are dealing with hundreds of episodes here. Like they call it serials, but they do a total soap opera, so to speak. I guess maybe they got that from the English that would do episodes, hundreds of episodes, and they thought let's do something similar here in India, and it's popular in a way. In fact, I don't even know which one is more popular. Is it their movies or their serials? Both. But the thing is that because it's both, you find people putting a pause on whatever serial they are watching to go and watch the movie that just came out that they like, maybe the actor or the producer is their favorite, so they go and watch that one, they digest that, then go back to the serial they were watching. Like it's just so interesting like that. But that's not where I'm really going. That's just like the background of my venture into movies, as the case may be. And I'm somebody that when I watch movies, I treat it like history. I learn from it. I think that history actually, fiction, I think fiction is a more, shall we say, is gentler than history in itself, because to tell history as it is, it's not for the faint of heart. Like you read some things in history and you're like, who would do a thing like this, but it's on record that it actually happened. And then of course there's some school of thoughts that will tell you that even history itself, they hold back. They don't usually write everything, but they give you the general idea of what happened in that time, and they give you a general idea of that event, especially if it is a very gory situation, or war situation that a lot of atrocities were committed, unless it's written by those who were vanquished, which there isn't much hope of that, really, because if the people are vanquished, who are they going to pass that information on to, right? And their chances are, just to get their revenge, they might not even say, they might add to it, they might embellish it. But more often than not, the people who write history are those who have attained victory over another, who vanquished other people rather than the vanquished. And so, as much as they want to, sometimes they say the history in such a way that makes them look good. You understand? But so they are in between looking good and looking victorious. Like, yes, we did this to them, we conquered them, but we're not that bad, Or like some people, it'd be like, oh well, we colonized them, we may have slave trade a little bit, but hey, we built them railroads, right? We taught them how to speak English. Haha. All right, so I paused a bit. I had to go do something. So history itself, sometimes I wonder about how accurate it is, but at least you can say that it is based on the circumstance. If you minus the fact that sometimes a person can write history from the point of being petty, like the motive for writing it or the mindset of the person writing it, could be that of somebody who is malicious. It could be on the part of somebody who, yes, they were the victims of that situation, but they could also write the story in such a way that makes that exaggerates what really happened to them, add to it so that, as a form of revenge, right? Then, of course, since that hardly ever happens, because who are you going to pass that to? Then you have a situation where it's the victors that write it and they embellish their victories. They embellish their kindness, add in that, oh, we did this, by the way, to compensate, whereas they didn't do much of anything. It's more or less like how some people claim that, they brought railroad to India as if that is supposed to be a good reason for every other thing that happened while they were there. We're not going to talk about how they got there, what they did while they were there, but we're going to talk about what they left behind. The railroad, right? They left the railroad. Okay. So you see things like that, and sometimes you're like, and it's just interesting. And if there is something about history, I think what made me really become interested in history, because I used to see history when I was in school as a teenager. I used to see history as, why should I start learning about something that happened way back then and is gone, But then Dr. Dike Olukoya said something. I think I heard it somewhere else, but then I heard it from him again, and it sort of confirmed it for me, because he's, a religious leader that I listen to a lot. And he said that those who fail to learn from history will repeat history. So that really got me startled, because I was like, wait, hold on a second.
So this thing is not gone after all. It's not always just something that is gone. No, it is actually, it could become present continuous if we don't learn about it. So I want to know exactly what has the potential to become present continuous. Like, I don't want to be caught unawares or by surprise. So that was when I began to have interest, because that's like a warning. No, it is a warning that those who do not learn from history are bound to repeat it, and I was like, if I don't know history, I wouldn't even know what I'm repeating. I won't even be aware that I'm repeating something. And if there is one thing I've learned about the scripture, the scripture says something that there is nothing new under the sun, which gives credence to the statement, those who do not learn from history are bound to repeat it. If there is nothing new under the sun, it means that everything we are doing now, everything every one of us are doing now, we are repeating history one way or the other. That's just it. We are all repeating history. We might think it's new, but if we check history, properly, we probably will see a few people that have done the very same thing that we are saying, invention, what a new thing. Yeah, well, it's a new thing because you don't even know, and history is not even complete in itself. So, like, there are so many things that have happened in the time past that are not on record, right? And so, chances are, you're repeating history. The prayer is that we repeat positive history. I remember in my church, we did a convention at a time and we called it Making Positive History, right? Now that I'm a little bit more interested in history and I'm learning bits and pieces of history all over the world, bits and pieces, mind you, bits and pieces, okay? I probably don't know everything about everybody, every group of people in the world, but anywhere I see it, I listen, I read, and I like, oh wow, okay. So that being said, it brings me to the movie I was talking about. I wanted to talk about, so one of it is Queen of Jansi. Queen of Jansi, this one, of course, when it comes to Queen of Jansi, you have Manikanika, you have Jansi Kirani. So there are so many depictions of the Queen of Jansi. And I've done what is it called now? An audio of that. I've talked about that like in somewhere else, which I uploaded it's on Spotify and is also on YouTube. So that I talked about it like movie, I don't know whether it's movie rants I called it. And I talked about what I felt could have been done differently, assuming, if we minus the is not historically accurate and all of that stuff. If we just look at it like, okay, let's assume this is what happened. Let's just assume that's what happened. Is this how it could have been better if this had been this way? It's just us learning, from what we see. We cannot just get entertained and not learn something, right? So yes, there was Queen of Jansi. That one was done from, I think the reason why it wasn't so popular and a lot of Indians found it as an insult was because it was, it wasn't shot in India, or rather by an Indian who lives in India kind of thing. I think it was mostly done in England or something. And I think that was what they had issues with mostly. And then of course there was the almost romance part of it between what they like to call the forbidden romance, between an English colonel and an Indian queen, right? So they some people were offended by that. And I'm like, what the... I don't understand what the offense is about. This is not an illicit thing, and nothing happened. It was just a long stare into each other's eyes and glancing away. That was as most a few times, and nothing was said, but a lot was implied that could have happened but did not happen. But then they still got offended anyway. And so I was wondering, what the heck? Then I realized that it's actually more common than I thought when I watched Cliffs of Freedom. Of course, I was skeptical about watching it because I knew it was going to be violent. I mean, Cliffs of Freedom says it's kind of self-proclaiming that, maybe somebody fell off the cliff because they felt that they were freer that way. I already knew that I was going to be sad. Honestly, I don't like to watch things that don't have happy endings, okay? Because it just messes with my emotions, and I don't like that. So if it must have a happy ending. That's just it for me. But now I'm even learning that it having a happy ending is not even enough, because a lot of things could happen in between that are just so sad that it's just as bad as it being a sad ending, So Cliffs of Freedom. Now, what really got me interested was that let me see. What really got me interested anyways, I skipped, the very violent parts of it. I just can't stand violence, sorry. I skipped those parts, I hope this is not a spoiler, but I'll just say this might be a spoiler, but if you don't mind, you might want to go and watch it. I watched it on YouTube anyways. And so you had a situation where there was a time when the Turks were oppressing the Greeks, the Ottoman Empire, the Turks under the Ottoman Empire, or the Turks of the Ottoman Empire. I mean, they were the Ottoman Empire when they were oppressing the Greeks, And it's quite interesting because I saw some comments that didn't say anything. They just said, "Oh, what a sad ending for a beautiful love story." I saw a few of that, but mostly I saw a lot of offense where people still had grievances against the Turks. Now, that is not a problem in itself. But I find it surprising because when Black people talk about the cross-Atlantic slave trade, when they talk about the segregation, when they talk about Jim Crow laws, when they talk about redlining, when they talk about systemic racism, you find some white people or people that are non-blacks, let's put it that way, and even some blacks too, who will go, "This happened several years ago. Like, why are you rehashing history?" But here I am seeing people who were like, they were repeating really, really bad things about the Turks. And I understand it because the Turks obviously were not the best of people to them. That is understandable. But what I'm beginning to understand is that when it's Black people, they expect us to just forget and move on. But other people have the right to carry on hatred from generation to generation, because they are entitled to that hatred. I remember a time when, there was a fracas. Let's put it that way. It was more than a fracas, though. It was like a riot in a football stadium where it was the result of a football game gone wrong, obviously, and the Italians were somehow blamed for it. And this happened in London, and there was a riot because of that. So you have a situation where if you remove what the history of England, of the English from Italians, if you remove that history, that riot may not have happened. But it happened because underneath all that, they still have this simmering resentment against one another. They still have resentment against Italy. They have resentment against France. They have resentment against America. Let's not forget that. And they almost made Meghan a scapegoat of that one. Because, they loathe, they don't show it, obviously. But, it comes out when they are being pressured, But when there is no pressure, they hide it well. But when they are being pressured, it comes out and you're like, why is this person so hateful and so aggressive against these people? Is just is this more than? Then you are now forced to say, somebody now says, they have a history with them. This happened way back then. Oh my God. Oh wow. Now I understand. Everybody understands when every other person but the black person is historically accurate. Critical race theory does not involve every other non-blacks. It only involves black history. It's interesting, but we'll go there another time. We're talking about the movie now, So I'm just stating why I'm surprised, because I'm like, wow, I thought everybody has moved on from their history. Apparently not, I remember someone said something really objective though that I can relate to in a way, is that the commenter is Greek, right? And he said that his grandmother always kind of frowned at him whenever he's playing with his Turkish neighbor when they were children. He said he always wondered why, but when watching the movie, he now understood why, and they showed the cruelty that the Ottoman Empire had towards the Greeks. But in the midst of that was one man who you can say he's a good soldier. He's not happy about killing people. He doesn't enjoy it, but he's just doing it because he's following orders. It's what he's raised on. Until he saw a girl, some people chose the cliff of freedom. Let's put it that way. Especially the women and children, they chose the cliff of freedom. And it was like, wait, he was almost appealing to them to not, go over. And then as he saw them, choose the cliff of freedom, he felt really terrible. And then he looked and saw a girl who was hiding in the shrubs, right? And he knew his subordinate was one bloodthirsty son of a gun, literally. And so he was like, there's nothing here. There's nothing more here. So he just walked off. He didn't say anything about the girl he saw. He didn't try to bring her out and all. But he never forgot, right? And that girl grew up, obviously she saw her aunts and neighbors choose the cliff of freedom and all. And she grew up, and somehow they met again under almost similar circumstances. This same person who was just bloodthirsty wanted to get at her brothers, and the man who spared her life was like, we're not here for the women and children. We're here for something else. Can we focus on that, please? And she saw him and recognized him. Of course, then he was the only one that dressed most differently from many Turks that they see. So she recognized him, and from there they met. They kept, I think it's more of him seeking her out, because of course he never forgot, but he didn't know on time that she was the woman or the girl he spared. She had now become a young woman. And so he felt drawn to her. It was like, you remind me of something that I can't remember right now, but you remind me of something or the other. She knew him, but he didn't remember her, obviously. And so from there, a love story sprang forth. But for me, I think that there is something about love that is dynamic, in the sense that you can love somebody and not fully trust them. And I think that was what happened with her. For me, because I like happy endings, you understand. Obviously, this is a man who, Lord help you, if he's caught, doing all he did for that girl, not to her, for her, because let's just say what he did would be considered treason, right? And you don't want to know how they treat somebody who is a traitor. But he did not care. He feared more for her than for his own life. If that isn't love, I don't know what is. But for some reason, she didn't choose him. She didn't trust him to help bring freedom to the Greeks. The thing is, he was actually appalled by what is going on. But he's a soldier. He follows orders. But he tries to be, as much as possible, temper the reduced bloodshed from his own end. At least he tries that, although he doesn't have a very cooperative subordinate who disobeys orders. When it comes to killing, that guy would find any excuse to kill Greeks. And he doesn't care that he's disobeying, a direct order, right? So that puts him in a position where he has to bear the responsibility of a senseless murder, actually. This is not a warrior fight. This is like assassination at its worst. He has to bear it, even if it was not his sword that spilled the blood, but it was his subordinate that did this, which makes him responsible for it. And, of course, it affected the woman he had started to love. It took him a while to know that it was love, though, but it was obvious. And he was willing to protect her, even when there was a bounty on her head, literally. But she did not follow him. And I wish she did. Call me a romantic and all. I am romantic. But I think that if you love someone and someone has put their reputation, their honor, everything on the line, their life on the line to rescue you, as you think that, why can't you trust them? But she felt that this is my fight and I have to do it without, I have to do it by myself, kind of thing. And she could not even fulfill it. She eventually chose the cliff of freedom. You have to watch the movie to know what that really means. I mean, you already can get the idea, but she had to choose. Eventually, she chose the cliff of freedom, even though the man was begging her that, please, we can find another way. There has to be another way. You don't have to do this, but she did. And he left the man continuing the fight. He already started the fight, by the way. He already did. And if she was alive, they could have had both. They could have forged a new realm, it would be a long fight, I know. And it would be very risky, of course. But they would have had a beautiful love story in the midst of so much devastation. And they will also have not just their love would help them to fight for, the rights of both, like he said, both the Greeks and the Turks, right? To make sure that the Turk is not always seen as an oppressor and a bloodthirsty beast. But at the same time, the Greeks are not also hunted like a prey all the time, So he was already committed to that before he met her, but he became more committed because of her as well, And he was like, at some point he said, "Come with me and I can protect you." I'll never forget that. And she slapped him. Like, what? You want to dishonor me and blah, 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 blah. And it was like the best because at some point, everybody around her almost got into trouble. And eventually she had to even seek his help because a family member of hers was captured and they meant to torture the guy until he gave up where she was hiding. Now, if she had followed the guy, it would take a long time for anybody to suspect. So now he will be protected because the reason why he's always putting his life on the line for her will be gone because she's under his protection now. He doesn't have to be seen in compromising situations with the enemy of the empire. He already has the person with him. And for somebody like him who has grown in the ranks, somebody like him who is not a bloodthirsty person, who is more of a court person, a diplomat than he is a soldier, though he's good at fighting. Yet he grew through the ranks and, he became a general at some point, but I just know he was addressed as a colonel. For him to get to that level, with that, it means he's very good at what he does and he can be trusted to protect her. But she did not trust him to do that. She could not trust her dream and her vision to him because, of course, trusting herself with him means that she also has to trust her vision to him as well. Her vision for freedom, for her people. But she could not trust it to a Turk, an enemy, She was determined to see him as an enemy, and it was... The ending was just unnecessary. Let's just put it that way. The ending was unnecessary. They could have had a family, Her grandmother predicted that she was actually going to fall for a great warrior, Unfortunately, she did not trust that warrior to protect her, But at some point, when she later realized that, they were losing the battle and she had to she had to escape, right? She was practically running away and they were targeting her with cannons. She had to run away. And I thought, why didn't you? Here is the thing. She could have just taken that offer from a man who risked his life to protect her. But now she's running away from the battlefield. And when she realized that at some point, the only person who could help her escape was the same man. Her cousin was helping her too, but something happened. He could not continue. And so the very person she did not want to trust with her safety was the person who was going to keep her safe. But instead, at some point, she decided to choose the cliff of freedom. Very sad. He was begging her, like, I wish he had held her hand, but he thought that maybe she would just follow him, By the time he looked back to see what was going on, it was almost too late. It was too late actually to stop her. And I thought it was a very bad. It was a cruel thing to do to a man you love, because she realized that she loved him after all. It was a cruel thing to do for a man to a man you love, a man who he's doing. It's not much, but he's doing what he can to protect your people, I thought it was a cruel thing to do to him. I think that he at least deserved to have a family, because I don't think he had a family after what happened. Well, not many men would want to marry a woman that they don't love, just because they want to have a family, So he had to continue their fight with a broken heart when they could have actually chosen better. He made a way. He was like, come with me, but she's like, it would be a betrayal to her people that she ran away or eloped or was seen being taken by a Turk. She didn't think love was more powerful than what her people think, right? Or what her people will think. Of course, that being said about the story, what people are saying about the movie was that, oh, this is an insult. And it just reminded me of Queen of Jansi, because the colonel, funny, both of them were colonels. Isn't that interesting? The English colonel in Queen of Jansi, who was a friend to her, offered as well to help her escape. And she was like, I can't do that to my people. And I'm like, can you not see that you could actually do this for the people? Like, you doing it for the people, because as long as you are alive somewhere, even if it could imply that you're dishonoring, quote and unquote, your people, you are alive. You can still keep the fight alive from your own end if you are safe somewhere. But instead, just like the heroine in the Cliffs of Freedom, or just like the heroine in the Cliffs of Freedom, the same end came to the Queen of Jansi as well. She was never found. So the consensus was that she, instead of allowing herself to be captured on the battlefield, and instead of being killed by an English, she killed herself somewhere where she would not be found. That was like the consensus there. Interesting, isn't it? And very sad. I thought it was pointless. Now I've watched 2 movies, and when I was reading the comments, people were saying things like, that is not accurate, that never happened, it was fiction, there was no romance anywhere, there was no good Turk that wanted to free somebody. And I'm like, well, maybe it wasn't recorded in history, but it's not impossible. I mean, who would even want to, that's the thing, who would even want to write that? Because to write that would mean to betray the person who is doing it. So obviously, somebody would weave a tale somewhere and say, oh, it's just fiction, it's just imagination. But is it? Chances are that really happened, But it's just teaching me, I'm just thinking about how part of love is to trust the person that you love, especially someone that has shown you a track record of being honest and truthful and loving. And what happened in the Cliff of Freedom was that the woman did not trust the man who put himself on the line for her to protect her. I think that they would probably have won that fight sooner if she was alive, because there is something about love that is so powerful. When love binds 2 people from 2 enemy groups, it becomes a force that gradually dispels the hatred, the bitterness, the strife, and the wars going on. It might look at first like that is not what is happening, But after some time, love begins to work its miracle from those two people. And it begins to work it on both sides. I would assume that, if she had followed him at the time, not at the battlefield, no, but at the time when he went to her, the first time he offered to. At the time of the battlefield, it was like, let's just leave all this behind and go. And she was like, but you have a destiny to fulfill. And he was like, you are my destiny now. You are my destiny. And I felt, oh, that is so sweet. I thought that was really touching, But then his destiny decided to, so he was left with, the woman he's seen as his destiny decided to choose the cliff of freedom. She decided to go without him. And now he was left to carry on the legacy she left behind, so to speak. A legacy they could still carry on if she had chosen to stay with him. When he first came, for me, I thought that because he's a general and he's not stupid, okay? He might be in love, but he's not stupid. He will have found a way to hide. What better person to hide you than an enemy? Nobody will suspect anything. And he would put her in a place that people will be looking for her. The enemies will be looking for her in the midst of the Greeks. But she's no longer there. She's among them and they will not even know. Hiding someone in plain sight. Have you never found a situation where you are looking for something all over the place? You look for it and you look for it and you look for it and you don't find it. Only for you to now find it on your person. Like it's on you or even in your hand. Funny. On your hand. Like your keys. Your keys are in your hand and you are looking for your keys. That is hiding. That is how powerful hiding something in plain sight was like. He understood that as a warrior and he was like, of course he didn't tell her that, but she took it as an insult and she was like, no, I'm not going with you, because she's like, oh my God, what would my people think? That would take me away from my goal, of course, she also had an aim to destroy somebody that had destroyed her family. So she wanted to see that happen. At the end of the day, I think we should just let love lead. Let love lead. It might seem like a weakness, but you see, that's the thing. It's because love is underestimated a lot. That is why it has so much power. Because it's not just emotions alone. It involves passion and it involves action. Love has a way of propelling you to just go way and beyond for somebody, even at the risk of your own life. I just felt sad for the man though. Like here he was having to deal with the nuances of being a Turk, but actually wanting the Greeks to be free. And then trying to use diplomacy to go around it. And he's doing that alone. Because the woman who could have fought alongside him, not in the battlefield per se, but somebody who he could, who could be his partner for life, just chose another route. And sometimes it comes from a place of fear. Right? The Bible talks about the perfect love casteth out all fear. So I would say that maybe her love was not perfect after all, And because it was not perfect, she could not fully utilize the power of love because she didn't see the power in it. If she saw love as a powerful thing, she would have gone with him. Yes. I think her brothers would just have covered for her. Like, I don't know, she was taken. Or something. Or she left. or something. He might have just come up with something, just to protect her. But knowing she's alive somewhere will be like a comfort for her people. But well, like some people insist, especially those who were averse to that idea of a Turk and a Greek falling in love. Oh, what an abomination. They insist it's fiction. Okay, well, I don't agree. But then, it's not my story. But I'm learning that there is more to love than just feeling that you could give yourself for somebody or to somebody. But the ability to trust the person as well with your dreams, with your life, with your honor, with your dignity, with your reputation. Because those were the things she was thinking about: her honor, her dignity, her reputation among her people, which obviously will be shot into hell if they found out that she ran off with a Turk. She wasn't taken, she went with him willingly. Oh dear, oh dear, oh dear. That would have been bad. But then that was out of fear, right? Well, I'll just let you, if you haven't watched the movie and you don't have a problem with sad endings, you can go and watch that, which includes Queen of Jansi as well. I'll just put a pin on that for now and just say, love the Lord thy God with all thy heart, with all thy might, with all thy strength. It said that they that know their God, they shall be strong and they shall do exploits. And walking in love is also part of knowing God. Letting love be a constant part of everything that you do. Is letting God be a part of everything you do. The Bible says God has not given us a spirit of fear, but of power. That came first. Then love. Imagine. And then a sound mind. So, the absence of love is fear. The absence of power is fear. The absence of sound mind is also fear. The fact that those three are even come together is very interesting, because it shows that to be in love is to have a sound mind. Is also a powerful thing. And to have a sound mind it shows the presence of love as well. Well, I'll just say peace.